Hello, it's Thursday, it's 1800 UTC, 1900 BST. My name's David Shepherd, so it must be David Shepherd's Facebook Live. Welcome to this evening's show, for whatever we might want to call it. Just for those of you who are new, we do a Facebook Live every Thursday, 1800 UTC and 1900 BST, British Summertime at this point in time. It's around about half an hour, and I talk about a chosen topic of NLP, of hypnosis, of timeline therapy, or HUNA. And so wherever you're watching from around the world, whether you're watching this live or whether you're watching the recording, welcome. If you're in the US, then at West Coast, it's going to be good morning, probably good afternoon for those of you on the East Coast, and even happy tomorrow morning for our viewers out in Australia and New Zealand, like Sue Warren, for instance. So today, what I'm going to talk about is the 3 requisites for change. I think this is really important because a lot of clients believe that if they were to come and do a coaching session with you, if they were to come and do a breakthrough session with you, if you were to do some like a business breakthrough session with them, then you're going to fix them and everything's going to be okay. They're not going to have to take any action afterwards. If only that were true. So I think it's an important thing both for us as practitioners to inform our clients of the 3 requisites for change, but also for us as practitioners to realize this ourselves and how important it is to actually inform our clients about these things so that they're very, very clear as to what they have to do to create long-term change in their business, long-term change in their relationships, long-term change in their health and fitness, long-term change in their life in general. So there are 3 requisites for change. The first one, I'm going to actually bear in mind the full-on extent of a breakthrough session, whether that be a personal breakthrough session or a business breakthrough session. Then in the first requisite for change is that the client successfully eliminates and releases negative emotions. Emotions like anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, any other negative emotion that they mention, and also anxiety. And also that they delete limiting beliefs or decisions. They integrate any parts. Any and all parts. They align their values as in they have released all values conflicts. Let's put that down. Values conflicts. And have set a or created a compelling motivational future. This is an important piece because most clients, when they come to see us, are predominantly away from motivated. And when you're away from motivated, you don't need to have goals as such because the world in general gives you plenty of things to move away from. When all of your away from motivation has disappeared, which will happen as a result of releasing negative emotions from the past, deleting limiting decisions, possibly integrating parts, then the person's meta-program, motivation, direction, meta-program, is going to shift quite fundamentally from more away from, to more towards. Which means the old musts, shoulds, and have-tos won't provide motivational energy anymore. Which means the client must have a compelling, exciting, motivational future for their unconscious mind to move towards. Very important piece. Otherwise, they're going to be quite happy, they're going to be quite relaxed, but they're not going to be motivated. And, motivational, exciting. It amazes me that people don't understand that if they set goals in the future which are boring goals, they will create for themselves a boring future. If they set goals which are unmotivating, unexciting, they're going to create a unmotivational and unexciting future. So we need to give our unconscious mind something that's exciting, that's motivational, that's compelling to move towards. And we're still not finished with requisite number 1 yet, in that the client needs to be convinced that the problem is gone, and reassured that the future is different, running out of space. So convinced the problem is gone comes from testing all of the events in the past that were previously causing them a problem, and having them notice now that they no longer cause a problem, there's no longer causing negative emotions, limiting beliefs, limiting decisions, parts conflicts, values conflicts, etc. But also reassured that their future will be different. So future pacing them, taking them out to a year in the future, having them realize the problem's still gone. 5 years in the future, problem still gone. 10 years in the future, problem still gone. 20 years out in the future, problem still gone. And also, I haven't got room to put this on, maybe this is actually a topic for a future Facebook Live, that we've installed any and all recovery strategies for the future in case things don't go according to plan, which they won't. Yep. So this is requisite number 1. That is, whilst you as a practitioner, master practitioner, trainer, consultant, coach, etc., is actually with the client. This is the only one of the 3 requisites that you have any control over, any responsibility over, in that you're actually with the client at this point in time. And as we know, because of the responsibility for change, even though we're with the client at that point in time, we can't do that for them. All we can do is show them how to do it and make sure that they actually do it. Then at this point in time, the client is off on their own, taking action. So requisite number 2 is taking action. Now, what does that mean? Well, it's interesting, quite often we go like, well, of course you've got to take action. But then if we don't make it real explicit to the client, quite often they don't understand what this taking action means. I think sometimes they think that timeline therapy or NLP or hypnosis is some kind of like silver bullet that now they've been for their session, they don't have to do anything in the future. They just carry on regardless in the way they were doing before, and everything will change. And obviously that isn't actually the case. I always remember we were running a weekend workshop on the application of NLP and timeline therapy and hypnosis to health and fitness. And I got one of my students there. She was a trainer of NLP, so she'd done master practice trainers training. She'd pretty much done everything that I'd offered at that particular point in time. And I saw that she had this major light bulb moment, which I could actually see from the stage. And I said, "Whoa, that was a big light bulb moment. What was going on?" And she said, "Yeah." She said, "I've just realized what taking action means." which I found a little bit curious and a little bit concerning, to be honest with you, since she's done Master Prac and Trainers training. And I said, well, do tell me more. What does taking action mean? She said, well, I thought that taking action meant releasing my negative emotions, getting rid of my limiting beliefs, aligning my values, and setting goals. She said, I've just realized if I'm going to achieve my health and fitness goals, I've got to change what I eat and exercise. No shit Sherlock, as far as that's concerned. Sorry, Mum, I swore already. But even with her having had all this training, she hadn't realized that that's what taking action meant. So what does it mean? It means, changing your behavior. As in that example there, it means changing what you put into your body and also what you're doing with it as far as exercise is concerned. If there were certain behaviors that caused you a problem in the first place, those behaviors will still cause you a problem afterwards. If the client doesn't take action, if they don't change their behavior, then it will appear that the problems come back. It hasn't come back, they've actually recreated it, because the same behaviors will have caused the problem in the first place. It might mean changing situations and circumstances. If you're in a job which doesn't fulfill you, or even worse, you're in a job that you hate, coming and doing a coaching session, coming and doing a breakthrough session is not going to change that job. What it will do is it will empower you to be able to go out and find and do something else. But it's still necessary for you to do that. If a person's in an abusive relationship, for instance, if they're in a relationship which is mentally, emotionally, physically abusive, then doing a coaching session, doing a breakthrough session empowers them to be able to either change that relationship or leave the relationship. But it doesn't replace the necessity for change or for leaving. It just provides the empowerment and the resources to be able to do that. This is a really important thing for people to realize as well. It also might mean creating and enforcing new boundaries. For yourself and for others, if there are certain behaviors that you were doing, indulging in if you like, that were violating your own boundaries, and which, for instance, negative emotions are there in the moment for a purpose. They let us know that there's something we need to pay attention to with regard to our boundaries. Someone, including ourselves, or something is violating our boundaries. And it's like the negative emotions come up and go like, woo, woo, you need to pay attention here and take action. So if there were certain behaviors the client was doing, which was violating their own boundaries and causing them to feel bad, negative emotions, then they've got to change their behavior and actually respect their own boundaries. If there were other people around them that were violating their boundaries, then they've either got to get those people out of their lives or put down new boundaries with those people and say, look, if you want to be around me, this is what I'm okay with. A breakthrough session and coaching doesn't replace this. It just means the person's let go of their fear, let go of their limiting beliefs, so they're able to and empowered to communicate effectively, put their boundaries across. Now, important thing then, enforcing new boundaries. Here's the thing to think about with this. If you put a boundary down with a 5-year-old, what does that 5-year-old do? Yeah, it tests the boundary to see if you mean it. You've got to realize that no matter how old the people are around you, Their unconscious mind has the thinking style of that 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old. As soon as you put a boundary down, they will test it. And as soon as you go like, no, that's not the way things are going to work around here. We've already put the boundary down. You agreed to respect this boundary. Then they'll back off and go, okay, just kidding. I was just checking. Yeah. Now, here's the other important thing with boundaries at this stage. The reason why a lot of people have experiences of problems with boundaries before they've done this bit is they put their boundaries down with negative emotions. They put their boundaries down with the emotion of fear, for instance. They're scared of what somebody might do around them. So, emotions are attractive, they're magnetic. So if we put down a boundary out of fear, we will attract people to violate that boundary in a scary way to prove that we should be afraid of people around us. So we need to be able to put the boundaries down, not even really with positive emotions, but with kind of like flat emotions. I quite often think, if somebody would ask you the time, you'd look at your watch and you'd go like 20 past 7 or whatever it may be. It's completely matter of fact. There's no emotion involved in it. Also, because of don't think of a blue tree, what a lot of people do with their boundaries, because they haven't done this stage at this point in time, is that what they do is they put their boundaries down and they tell people what's not okay for them to do. As in, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, and don't do this if you don't want me to tell you to go away. So they're away from in the way they're formed linguistically. So, what we're actually doing is actually having people focus on exactly what we don't want them to do, and then layered in with the energy of negative emotions, and wonder why people do the very things we don't want them to do, and actually it gets to prove to us that we should be angry, that we should be sad, that we should be afraid, that we should feel hurt, that we should feel guilt. So this is a really important educational piece in here, as far as many of our clients need to be taught exactly how to go about setting up boundaries and also how to go about maintaining and enforcing their boundaries. And they've got to change their situations and circumstances and change their behaviors too. So there's a lot of things here. What I'll normally do with a client is I'll go, okay, so what is it that you now believe you have to do to make this change become a physical reality and permanent in your life? In the main, I find that clients know exactly what they need to do. They knew what they needed to do before they were a client. It's just that because of their limiting beliefs, because of their negative emotions, they weren't empowered or resourceful enough to actually change those behaviors, change those situations and circumstances. But it's always worthwhile checking this. And then, just in case there's some fairly glaringly obvious ones that are missing. And then as a coach and the breakthrough consultant, you've got a responsibility of informing the client, actually, I think you also need to do this. That's 2 of the 3 requisites for change. Number 3 is focus on what you want. As in the whole thing about don't think of a blue tree. Now, we are fairly well trained culturally to focus on the opposite of this, to focus on what we don't want. I don't watch the news very often, but I'm always quite amused that the beginning of news on TV or the radio always starts the same way. Either good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. And then they spend the next half an hour convincing me that it's nothing of the sort. We are bombarded with information about things that we don't want to focus on. So our unconscious mind is quite trained. Plus negative emotions, away from values, limiting decisions, parts conflicts will also have us focus on what we don't want. Releasing the negative emotions, getting rid of the limiting decisions, getting rid of the away from values, integrating the parts, make it easier to focus on what we want, but doesn't make it automatic. There's a quote from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, which goes something like this: where there be negative thinking, let there be contemplation to the contrary. So if you think about a thought and then the emotional energy we put into that thought, then quite often, then imagine we're like a set of scales. Quite often we catch ourselves having been focused on what we don't want and feeling angry or sad or afraid or hurt or guilty or whatever it may be for quite some time. We've tipped the balance. But, being well trained in positive mental attitude, we catch ourselves after a while focusing on what we don't want. And we go, oh no, I've been focusing on what I don't want. What do I want instead? Whew, close one. But we didn't right the balance. So what Patanjali is saying is, where there's been negative thinking, let there be contemplation to the contrary. Think about what it is you want instead and how good that will feel and what that will enable you to do, who that will enable you to be, what that will enable you to have, so that we can tip the balance, at least right the balance, if not tip it over the other way. And that's going to take some practice to rewrite the old habits of focusing on what we don't want. As I say, the breakthrough session, the coaching, makes it possible to do this, makes it easier to do this, but the person's still going to need to practice it, is still going to keep bringing their focus back to what it is that they want over and over again to retrain their unconscious mind. And there's a certain point in time, the anxiety process in timeline therapy and mental emotional release is great for this, in that, you got a 15 minutes after the event about which you thought you were anxious. Turn around and face now, and where's the anxiety? Well, 15 minutes after things went perfectly well, exactly the way you wanted them to, there's no anxiety there. And you keep repeating that pattern over and over again until there's just nothing else out in your future that you're anxious about. At which point in time, what you've done is you've installed within the unconscious mind a strategy for focusing on what you want. So there we go. There's the 3 requisites for change. Let's just do a quick recap. Step 1 is actually, whilst we're with the client, eliminating negative emotions, deleting limiting decisions, integrating any parts, aligning values, releasing tools away from conflicts, setting compelling goals, and also filling the client's convincer strategy and reassurance strategy. Then making sure that the client's taking action, changing their behaviors, the behaviors that was causing them problems before the session. What are they going to do instead? Changing certain situations and circumstances around relationships, jobs, family, etc., etc., etc. And then, also creating and enforcing new boundaries. These are vital. They might not be easy. They might not be comfortable. All the breakthrough session does, and all the coaching does, is make it possible to do that. It's not saying that this is going to be easy. It's going to be simple, but that doesn't necessarily mean easy. And then over a period of time, continually focusing on what it is that they want to create out in their future. With all of that done, then the results that people can create in their life is quite phenomenal, quite spectacular, and actually can create huge change in very short periods of time. So thank you for joining me here on Facebook Live. If you want to get more information about that, there's some information about the 3 requisites to change in Coaching Skills for NLPers, which is in the business programs section of the training programs in the I Am David Shepherd app. Go to davidshepherd.com and you can download the app there, subscribe, try it out for a month for free, and get even more information on all of this stuff. I'll see you next week. Have a great week. Have a great weekend. We've got Huna coming up this weekend, Huna Intro in London, which I'm really excited, really looking forward to, really excited about. So, and any ideas that you've got about what you'd like me to talk about next week, then just DM me on Facebook and I'll do the best I can to actually cover your topic of choice. See you. Have a good evening and a good weekend and the rest of the week.